arts, culture, and entertainment in the Coachella Valley. This is The Desert Scene with Bonnie G. from the Mutual Broadcasting System. Here's Bonnie.
And welcome to The Desert Scene. We're very happy to have you here, and also very happy to welcome Tim Mulligan, who has written a play called Witchland. Sounds very interesting. It's coming up at Revolution Stage Company February 6th. Hi, Tim. How are you?
Hey, Bonnie. I'm great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I'm looking at the info I have here. This is your first play, right? So tell us how this came to be and a little bit about the story.
Yeah, great. So, yeah, it's my first actual play. I've been in the theater world more as a board member and just an avid theater lover for decades now. And but I also like to write. And so I always had this idea going to all these plays that when in my estimation, at least one genre that seemed to be lacking in the live theater world was a scary play. And I've seen several that I think tried and I enjoyed, but they weren't. And I saw how audiences reacted to some scares, which I thought were good, but I thought that I could really try to notch that up a little bit. So during COVID, I was in Palm Springs where I live, and I decided, as I was quarantining, that I would use that time wisely, and I would finally write this play that I had in mind. So I started putting pen to paper, or computer, I should say, and writing this play that, and it just made sense to write the story to your other question about what I know, which is my own very mysterious upbringing in my hometown of in eastern Washington State. It's Richland, Washington, which is the home of the Hanford nuclear plant. Which, if you don't, and so back in the 40s, Hanford was created to create plutonium for bombs, and that's where the bomb dropped on Japan was actually built, was at Hanford in Richland, and so. So since that time, that they built for decades, they created plutonium and at this nuclear reactor. In the 80s, they quit building because there were a lot of lawsuits had come and a lot of illnesses had come about because of it, and people getting sick from the radiation and kind of the toxic nature. There's some reports call it the most toxic area in the Western Hemisphere.
Wow!
And so now since then it's a cleanup site. So right now there's millions and millions of gallons of this toxic waste. So they're trying to figure out what to do, and it's kind of buried in tanks and leaking. And so there's just been a history in this town of mystery around Hanford and lots of sickness. All of us who were born and raised there, all of us have people close to us that had some sort of health issues that you can attribute to that. And so I thought I'd write a play about my own family, a gay couple and their teenage daughter who's of color, and they moved to the Tri-Cities or Richland, Washington, and one of them gets a job out in their nuclear plant, and scary things start to happen. And you're not sure if it's because of his job out in the nuclear plant where he's exposed to radiation, or is it because there's a lady across the street from them who might be a witch? And so that's kind of based on, the lore of my hometown as well. So I just kind of wrote what I knew and wrote this fun, scary play, and that's what Witchland is all about.
Wow. Now, I'm wondering why, because I didn't know any of that about the history of the nuclear plant and all that in Washington State. Why do you think that? Is that something that's widely known in the rest of the country?
No. It's really strange. Even the people in Richland, who's a part of the play, don't talk about it. I mean, it's such a beautiful place. I mean, my family and friends, all still live there, and it's on the Columbia River, and there's wineries and golf courses, and a good, you can raise a family there. They just don't talk about this giant nuclear reactor that's leaking radiation right there. But up in Seattle, you'll see news reports. 60 Minutes has been there a few times. New York Times has had a couple articles even this year about Hanford because. I think with Oppenheimer, there's, they mentioned Leslie Groves goes to Hanford, and that's one of the sites for the Manhattan Project. So, but it's been mysteriously radio silence in the pop culture world, so that it seems such great material, I think, for stories that's what I'm trying to do. So I've actually written a trilogy of plays, and Witchland is the first one.
We'll get back to you in the play, but just that story one more time. So, are there still a lot of unresolved lawsuits over this, or were there back in the day?
Well, so there's, back, I don't know about the exact details, but there's a class action lawsuit which has been deemed the downwinders, and those are people like back in 1950, early 50s. They did some testing, and they actually let radiation go out in the air, and the wind took it and blew it to all these farms in the area, and many people died and got sick. Animals got sick. Babies were born with health issues. And then people who were raised in that time and started getting this type of thyroid problems and cancer, they all banded together, and it wasn't until the 80s that they created this class action suit called the Downwinders, and all that was just really settled in the mid 2000s. And so, but that was for that lawsuit. There are still to this day, though, hundreds of people, modern day, who are claiming, sickness out there, have health issues. There's lawsuits. There's hundreds of whistleblowers who are now kind of banded together with an organization. So it continues to be a problem. Now,
going back to your play, since this was based on something that you grew up with, did it kind of flow really easily out of you? Was this something that had been percolating in your mind for a while, this particular story?
Yeah, I mean, it once I figured out how to format the writing of a play, I just storyboarded it, and it came pretty easy. Because there's really two stories in there that's all merged together. There's the story of this family, and it's really similar to my own situation with my partner and my daughter. I pulled my kids out of high school for a job up in Seattle, out of San Diego, and so I decided to write about that, where this couple kind of this man gets this great job out at Hanford and brings his family and kind of plops this gay white couple with their of color dynamic high school daughter in this town where they're really fish out of water. So that all came to me easy. Two things happen in the story that kind of make they come together for the chills and thrills, I'd say. One is that there's a tunnel collapse out in the Hanford plant that really happened in 2017, that in the play, one of the fathers is there for, and so you don't know if that's why he starts getting sick. But also, I mentioned before, there's this woman across the street who has a troubled history with Hanford also, and that might be why she's, kind of the way she is, and you don't know if she's just mysterious, has mental illness, or is she really a witch, because there's a lot of rumors in town that she curses people. And so you don't know what happens if what's happening to this couple is based on, one or the other or both. And so to answer your question, all that came pretty easy. I had a really a good idea for this story. And then my challenge was writing the play was one thing, but I really wanted to deliver on the laughs and the scares. So I really tried to think about, what immersive nature with a theater could you, besides having jump scares on stage, how could you really use the space from the second you leave the parking lot and go into the lobby? How can you have the story start right there? So in the play, you're actually walking into tour a nuclear reactor from the second you get there. So you're really on edge when you're greeted by people in hazmat suits and Geiger counters. And from then on, it's just, you don't know what's going on.
That's fabulous. Now, did you have, as the playwright, did you have any say in casting?
Well, yeah, a little bit. I mean, for the Palm Springs show. So the play ran for a month in San Diego at the end of 2021, and it really killed it. It was a huge production. It got a lot of accolades from the critics, and people loved it. And I was really involved with that show. This show that Revolution Stage Company is doing, they're really going all out with this production. And so I was there for the auditions. I gave some feedback, but I really let the director and the producers at Revolution Stage Company make the decisions, of course. I'm just there to advise and give some, suggestions here and there. Right.
And now you mentioned a trilogy. So you have two more after this that are kind of centered around the same thing?
Yeah, there's so many stories there. I mean, this story is kind of a scary, cautionary, environmental tale that involves the witch as well. I've written a sequel that's already, the play is done, and a graphic novel will be coming out later this year called Witchland, which is really all about the whistleblower side of it, like folks who have brought safety issues from Hanford to the forefront, and yet they've suffered retaliation because of it. So right now, though, the focus is on Witchland and this play, and then it's also going to go to New York in April. So this is a good trial run here in Palm Springs before the off-Broadway run in April. And then the last thing I'll add is that I turned it all into a graphic novel with a illustrator from Mexico who's amazing, and that graphic novel will get published in a few weeks, and we'll be selling it. It'll be available on Amazon, but also at the theater as well.
Wow, well, you're just rolling. Boy, that took this idea in COVID, and that's great. Now, I noticed on February 10th, I just lost it. Talk Back. Yeah. Talk Back with playwright and director following this Saturday, February 10th performance. So that'll be really interesting. Did you have a Talk Back session when it ran in San Diego?
I did. We did some workshops with theater folks and donors in the community, and then during the live production, I did a talk back. I think for this one in Palm Springs especially, because folks, like you mentioned earlier, a lot of this is new to you. Like you don't even know, like really this is based on a true place. Why have I never heard of it? Mm-hmm. So I will be after the evening production on Saturday the 10th. I will be up on stage with probably the director and the cast and some of the folks from Revolution, but it'll be a good time to talk about, Richland and Hanford and the so-called witch and kind of tell my story. So yeah, I'll be sharing that with the audience on that night.
Was there anything for the talkback that you had in San Diego? Was there anything A that surprised you that people mentioned or asked, and B, was there anything that they said that tempted you to make any changes along the way?
Yeah, I mean, that all happened pretty quick. And so I finished the play in spring of 2021. I pitched it to some theaters and they jumped at it, which I think I got pretty lucky for a first-time playwright, and I acknowledge that. And then we did some workshopping productions and read-throughs through the summer, and there's a lot of tweaks that I made, on the story, on, there's some sensitivity around witchcraft, and we didn't want to, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't too literal with some of that.
Yeah.
And being my first play, I just took it all in, and we did. And I worked with a company in San Diego called Backyard Renaissance Company, and they're amazing, helping me develop it. So, yeah, a lot of tweaks were made. Characters were dropped. The script was tightened. Mm-hmm. The scares were amped up.
Yeah.
But I think once we got that going and once the production was up and running, we didn't change a thing because I think it's really fine-tuned to where it needs to be.
Excellent. Well, let's get the particulars in. It opens February 7th, Revolution Stage Company. And if anybody listening does not know, that is the building where it previously housed Desert Rose Playhouse in the Sunset. It's a great space, wonderful space. Runs February 7th through the March 2nd.
March 2nd.
And tickets, you can go to Revolution Stage Company. .com or 760-318-4115. Well, Tim Mulligan, congratulations. Sounds like a wonderful project. I got to come see it. Can't wait to see it. Sounds fabulous.
Yeah, I think the idea is to really to deliver a theatrical experience that you've never had before. So I think that you'll really have a great time.
Absolutely. Well, Tim Mulligan, thank you so much. Continued success, and thanks for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We'll see you there.
All right. See you guys the next time on The Desert Scene.
This program was produced by the Mutual Broadcasting System.